Welcome, everyone. We're just letting some people into the room. But since you were asked to be here at 7, I said the meeting will promptly start. I will begin promptly starting the meeting. As you can see, my name is Jill Maurice, or Jillian Maurice. I have agreed to be the nomination chair and returning officer for the provincial nomination process for the Guelph Greens. So our singular nominee, drumroll please, is Mike Schreiner, our current MPP and leader of the Green Party of Ontario. And so today is the day that we are having a big special event in which we will hopefully confirm that he will be voted in. Thanks to many of you who have voted in advance. Before we officially start the meeting, I am going to turn things over to Diane Dance, another local Guelph Green, who is going to take us through a land acknowledgement and show a video.
Okay, thank you, Jill. As we are gathered tonight, we are reminded that Guelph is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and has been home to a variety of peoples over the millennia. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here and thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. For me, as I consider land acknowledgements, I find myself often reflecting on the dish and one spoon Indigenous law. I challenge myself to do better. As I ensure my family is sustained, what am I doing to ensure the dish is full for the next family? I am very grateful for this Indigenous guidance. We want to take an opportunity tonight to share with our Green supporters a video explaining the purpose and importance of place-based land acknowledgements. This video was created specifically for use at the University of Guelph and by U of G staff. It is meant to remind viewers that land acknowledgements are not just a symbol of recognition, but are a platform where meaningful steps towards reconciliation can be taken. This video is not in place of a land acknowledgement, but as supplementary information. Funding for the video was provided by the Ontario Agricultural School through the OAC Learning Trust and the School of Environmental Design and Rural Development, and also by the University of Guelph Student Life Enhancement Fund. Thank you to everyone at our amazing U of G who are involved in making this video. It's coming.
Sorry, folks. Apparently that was muted. It's still not making sound, is it? I promise we tested this.
Guelph, known as Tadinaduni, the place where they built to the Mohawk Nation, on the shores of the Umnimosa River, as it is known to the Mississaugas. This place has many names that are not consecrated on colonial maps. We are on the traditional lands of Attawandaron, Anishinaabeg, and Haudenosaunee peoples, and on the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. This place is home to peoples who can trace their lineage here back thousands of years. We are within the jurisdiction of the two-row wampum and the dish with one spoon covenant. These are nation with nation agreements, and they serve as reminders that all the people on this land are still accountable for the promises made by their ancestors. This land is a product of many stories, seen and unseen. It is shaped by the wind, the water, and the people that have flowed and continue to flow across it. It is one of the many meeting grounds of Turtle Island. It has been the stage for many dramas that have been forgotten, and many that are all too well remembered. But all of these dramas have played a part in building the life that we have today, with all of its privilege and all of its pain. Being honest and open about this history is central to the land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgements are not meant to instill guilt or to assert treaty rights. They are not lip service to institutional or governmental mandates, nor are they meant to simply convey sympathies or regret. They are a way for us all to feel more connected to the land that sustains us. They are a reminder of our responsibilities to the land and of our relationship to the natural world. They are meant to push us to educate ourselves about the history that has shaped our lives here, so we can begin rebuilding relationships from a place of honesty. Land acknowledgements are meant to remind us that Canada was founded neither on pristine wilderness nor on empty space. Rather, it was built alongside and then on top of Indigenous nations that existed since time immemorial. And also to remind us that those nations continue to exist and continue to have responsibilities to the land and inherent rights to determine their own futures and practice their own languages and cultures without discrimination or interference from other forms of government. The land acknowledgement highlights the importance that Indigenous peoples place on kinship with land in a culturally responsible way, and is a step towards building a future focused on understanding, respect, reciprocity, and a reconnection with the land and with one another. Finally, the land acknowledgement is a platform for real change and real commitments to be put forward. It is meant to break the silence that has left Indigenous peoples and communities in Canada deprived of clean water, disadvantaged in educational opportunities, forced into housing and poverty crises, and destabilized by systemic racism and inequality. For settlers and visitors, the land acknowledgement should inspire questions like, what steps will Western institutions and organizations take to mend the privilege gap which began with colonization and is continued in so many of our present-day policy? How have you benefited from colonization at the expense of the cultures, lives, and livelihoods of Indigenous peoples? What will your contributions be to reconciliation and a future focused on equity, reciprocity, and nation-with-nation relationships?
So now it is back to me to reintroduce you to the extremely colonial practice of sharing the agenda. And I'll just share my screen so you can sort of see where we're planning to go from here. Get me back here, share screen. So our official agenda for this night's process, we've been through the very brief introduction of me, your returning officer and nomination chair, Jillian. We have had Diane Dance introduce the land acknowledgement and the video put together by many local people, including a few green names some people might recognize. Next, I'm going to just reiterate how the voting is working in these interesting times. And That is to say that most of you who are members will have received an email saying how to vote. The nomination process is a ranked ballot of choose your favorite, Mike Schreiner, or none of the above. The website is simplyvoting.com. It's a common one we use with the Green Party. So it's a nice trusted source, at least. If you have had any issues with that, there'll be an opportunity to work on that. The voting has been going for approximately 48 hours. So we are pretty sure we're going to achieve quorum. And I think we can confirm that at this moment. Just double checking something. I'm officially asking you as well to look over the rest of the meeting with me, because we will then have our speakers. We will then have our guest speakers, Matt Richter and Jaya James. We will then have a short speech from Mike Schreiner. We'll close the voting officially. So if you haven't had a chance to vote, you can still vote if you can find that email. Then we'll announce the results. Mike will give a short speech, and then we'll have some remarks from Diane Dance, and then we'll officially close the meeting. Can I ask our participants, as a, once again, lovely governmental and official party practice, to use the raise hand functionality to vote to approve the meeting minutes, or the meeting agenda, sorry. And we're going to have a quick skim through by some of our other background folks. I have a feeling this is going to be okay.
Yes, Jill, of everyone who voted, it was positive.
Okay, so with our agenda approved, I am now going to give you an opportunity, if you have not had a chance to vote and you wish to have assistance or have the procedures explained to you, or you were not able to access the Simply Voting ballot, any of the above, I'll stop sharing my screen, and we can introduce you to AJ, who is our Green Party of Ontario Central Office representative tonight. And AJ can step with you into a breakout room and offer any assistance. And if you had your hand raised, you can also lower your hand now that the agenda is approved.
Hi, everyone. Candace here. I am not on the agenda, but I'm just going to poke my head in here to explain about the breakout room where you can join AJ if you do have a question about casting your vote. For those of you who are on a desktop, along the bottom of your screen, you should, it's a little hard for me to see because I'm the host, so my screen looks a little bit different, but you should have an icon that's a number of boxes maybe and says breakout room. And if you click on that, you should see that there is one room, breakout room 1, and AJ is in there, and you can choose to join that room if you like to ask her a question. and then you can then leave the room and join us back here.
Thank you, Candice, our Zoom guru. So what I am now going to do is move to the next item on the agenda, and these are some of the exciting parts, since it's not just the voting things. I'd like to take a couple seconds to introduce one of our guest speakers. We have with us tonight Matt Richter. You might recognize him as he is a returning Green Party of Ontario candidate for Parry Sound, Muskoka, and he is planning to run in the upcoming provincial election set for June 2022. Matt supports small business and a buy local campaign to grow this backbone of our communities. He knows this from firsthand experience as an entrepreneur. He's also been a teacher with Trillium Lakeland District School Board since 1998. And in 2016, he also took a leave to found Best Ever Food. His wife, Kaylee, and 3 children enjoy skiing, playing hockey, cycling, and canoe tripping, and presumably Matt likes to do that with them. Matt also volunteers his time coaching local league hockey and soccer in Huntsville. He loves his teaching and he loves learning with his students, and he knows the importance of investing in their future. Thanks for coming tonight, Matt.
Well, thank you, Jillian, for that kind introduction, and bonjour, hello, and ani, everyone. When asked to present tonight and share about how Mike, and the leading question was, how has Mike impacted my political journey? It can easily be summed up in one word: inspirational. The word inspirational comes to mind in so many ways, whether it be the way he conducts himself, the way he gives himself up and visits our riding countless times over the years, but also in those off-political moments too. He seems to inspire his sense of the outdoors that just amazes our family too. For instance, last year, despite his incredibly busy schedule, we got together and shared some camping stories. We were sharing about how we were doing this arduous journey through Temagami, and we made it all the way to Wolf Lake. And Mike happened to then follow that up by saying, well, my daughter and I, for our daddy-daughter canoe trip, we did that, but we did the full Chiniguchi loop, which was the Wolf Lake and the full extension. So not that there's competition between Mike and I, but my goodness, he is inspirational in so many ways. But it's been so many times since I've known him. When he first arrived into my life, when he was nominated as leader down in London. I'm not sure how many of you were there at that time, but it may show how long we've been together, and not once has Mike ever said anything that's offended me or put me in a way that is at unease. And hopefully I haven't done anything negative to you too, Mike, but I think we've always worked well as a team, and I've always admired his humility and his sense of caring and his sense of purpose. And, you know, on that whole vein of thought, it comes to mind as to how grateful I am. And in that sense of gratitude, every morning that kicks off our school week with my grade 5-6s, we do a sharing circle. And we share about how we were grateful for something from the weekend. Well, I'd like to continue that right now. And my gratitude is solely focused on Mike. You know, Mike has, I would have to say, he has done something that has not just inspired myself, but inspired our entire riding of Parry Sound Muskoka, and obviously all of Ontario too. But it's his composure. It is how he perseveres and relentlessly honest with everyone, that he has raised that bar of how to do politics better. And excuse me. And there were times, certainly over the past few years, that I truly felt I'm done. I don't see how I can go back. But then it was Mike. It was always Mike showing, not just to me, but to everyone around me and around my network of friends, how important his work is, and that he's championing this better way, and he's proven this better way. And it's so motivating, and it keeps myself, but not just myself, it's the people around me up here inspired. to constantly believe that this isn't something that can just possibly happen. It will happen. And Mike has shown everyone, and through Queen's Park and the Queen's Park media, how Ontario deserves to have politics done better. But, you know, I have to recognize that it's not just myself that he's inspired, because as I've said, I am part of a team up here in Parry Sound, Muskoka, and I'm proud to be part of the Green Party of Ontario team. And we are just one riding of many. But in advance of tonight, I had to reach out to our CA and to the people up here in our riding and ask them, because it's through them and to me that we are inspired. So I took some quotes, if I will, and I think this is very important to share on their behalf. Leslie in our riding said, I really like the way that Mike promotes policies and legislation that are in the best interests of people. Lee said, I'm inspired by Mike's positive and caring attitude and his ability to make change. Brian said, Mike always has inspired me because of his authenticity. And Linda said, has said, Mike has inspired me because of one thing Mike said. And he said, I may not have the power, but I like to think I do have influence. And he says, I have so many opportunities to lean next to my colleagues at Queen's Park and quietly ask, do you really think that it is what's best for folks? Or do you really want this to be your legacy? Mike has done all of these things, but I need to end with one other couple in our riding, Derek and Joanne. Derek and Joanne came up to me the other day, and this is just how much of a rock star Mike has become up here. Mike came up to me and said, Matt, tell me you saw the post of Mike at Queen's Park questioning the absurdity of this Highway 413. He made that other guy look silly. He couldn't or even wouldn't answer Mike. And then they ended off by saying, wow, you know, Mike is really, really good. There was a pause in the conversation, and I simply said, I know. And to all of this, and it's not that I look at the lighter side of everything that Mike has done in these remarks tonight, but I do want to always encourage the people around us and here in like tonight too, but around us in our riding, to realize the important work that Mike has done and how he has just kept that fire lit under myself to keep pushing forward. We've achieved a lot of greatness up here in Parry Sound, Muskoka, but we haven't quite got there yet. And with Mike, it would only be an honor to be able to join him in 2022 and keep this legacy of doing politics better that Mike has started. On behalf of all of us here in Parry Sound, Muskoka, I want to thank all of you for letting me share some encouraging thoughts and words, and to let you know how it may be somewhat envious we are of the MPP that you get to have down in Guelph, and we like to share and fashion ourselves out over those moments too. But at the same time, it is an honor and a wonderful opportunity to be able to join in on tonight's meeting of Mike being nominated for going into the 2022 election. Here we go. Everyone, thank you, merci, and miigwech.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was a lot of fun to listen to. Our next speaker is a little bit more local. I'd like to introduce Jaya James, who is a lifelong Guelph resident and University of Guelph graduate. She is passionate about community building and has devoted much of her time to walking with people through life's challenges and celebrations. Jaya, as some of you may know, is the executive director of Hope House, a downtown Guelph organization that offers many services and programs to community members who are experiencing poverty, with a focus to allow them to maintain their dignity and choice. Her previous work experience includes working for the provincial government as a policy advisor, where she researched food access opportunities and challenges, and also working as a commercial banker for a major commercial bank. Jaya, like Mike, is also a member of the Rotary Club of Guelph. So well connected, and thank you for coming tonight, Jaya.
Thank you. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Mike. And for many of us, we may feel that we know Mike and know him fairly well. Mike's always advocating for us, always participating in our community, always listening to our concerns. But in preparing this introduction, I learned a few neat things about Mike, and possibly you will too. So Mike was born and raised in northwestern Kansas on a family grain farm. He grew up helping his parents, Barbara and Ronald, run the farm. And like many, his time working with the land really developed that strong and passionate interest in food, agriculture, and the environment. At Indiana University, Mike met his future wife, Sandy Walsh, and I'm pretty sure that's where he got his love of basketball, because anyone who knows Indiana knows that's one of the big state schools. So after graduating from there, Mike and Sandy moved to Toronto in 1994. They both are proud parents to two daughters, Isabella and Beta. And since coming to Canada, Mike's been an entrepreneur, small business owner whose ventures have focused on sustainable food production and the local food movement. So Mike first became active in the Green Party of Ontario in 2004. And possibly, I think you guys can take credit for the fact that Mike decided to become a Canadian citizen in 2007, because once he became active, he really never looked back. In 2009, he was acclaimed the party leader, and under his leadership, the party grew. He was the first elected member of the party to the Ontario legislature in 2018 for the riding of Guelph with 45% of the vote, which is just a massive accomplishment. So all these accomplishments would be enough, but there's so much more to Mike. Mike is one of those visionary leaders, and we have so few of those, that has the ability to see where we could be and how far we are from it and not be discouraged, but rather inspire people, the community, and the province that a just, sustainable, and livable future is within our grasp. And I think that's a major thing to have as a leader. And this type of leadership is a type that not every community has, but every community deserves. So what does this leadership look like? I think it's the type of leadership that develops, promotes, and supports the passing of the Paris Gulf Moraine Conservation Act, a key piece of legislation for ecological and hydrological significance. It's the type of leadership that champions the needs of some of the most vulnerable members of our community by regularly speaking in support of supportive housing, access to overdose prevention sites, and hosting at-risk youth at Queen's Park. It's the type of leadership that advocates for two-way, all-day transit. And it's the type of leadership that echoes the concerns of its constituents, including the Guelph Humane Society on animal enforcement. And finally, it's the type of leadership that convinces governments to reopen community gardens in the first few weeks of the pandemic. So this is just a tiny snapshot of the work that Mike and the Green Party of Ontario have done. And so I feel I must conclude with a word of thanks, not only to Mike for his service, but to his family and friends that have supported him and given him the freedom to do so much for this community, this province, and this party. So thank you, Sandy, Isabel, Beta, and friends for sharing Mike with us. We are better for it. So Mike, if you managed to make it here, I know you're caught in some traffic, the floor is yours. Hopefully you didn't celebrate too late after the NCAA basketball championship game. It was a really good game last night.
Thanks, Jaya, for that really kind introduction. And thank you for opening up Hope House as a place for me to just share community with people and to just, I don't know, just get out, touch my spirit of wanting to be a part of a community and wanting to alleviate poverty. And I did get a chance to watch the game last night, though I will have to say that my beloved Kansas Jayhawks, I missed them not being in the game. But anyway, I just want to thank you for the kind introduction. And I also just want to begin today by saying that I'm addressing all of you from my home in Guelph, where I just did an interview with CP24. And I want to take a moment to just express my gratitude for the Indigenous peoples who have cared for this land, the water, and the plants and animals who live here. The Haudenosaunee, the Ojibwa, Chippewa, the Anishinaabe, and the Adirondack Neutrals people. And the land where I live here in Guelph is the treaty lands of the Mississauga, the Credit First Nation, and is covered under Treaty 13, the Between the Lakes Purchase. And I want to reaffirm the Green Party's commitment to the truth and reconciliation process, which is vital to combating colonialism and systemic racism. And I just want to say I've learned so much about stewardship from Indigenous peoples, and I'm grateful for these teachings. It's been almost 3 years since I was elected to serve Guelph, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to be the Green candidate for Guelph once again. I love being a champion for Guelph at Queen's Park, and I'm truly honored to be part of a team that is dedicated to serving and helping people in Guelph. And I gotta say it, Ontario could use a bit more Guelph. So I want to thank all of you for the chance to continue the work we started in 2018, fighting for housing affordability, better mental health services, investing in community-led projects, climate solutions, and fighting to protect our water in the places we love. There's a lot more I want to do for our community, and I'm incredibly grateful and excited to begin the next chapter. Being the first Green MPP at Queen's Park is a role I've taken very seriously and am deeply honored to hold. When I was first elected, I promised to do things differently. I believe we need politicians that will put people before party and good ideas before partisan political games. It's something the Green Party believes in, and it's something I try to do every day by supporting good ideas from all parties. And so while I do not hesitate to criticize the government, and I'm sure you've seen that in media articles and videos I share on social media, I put partisan differences aside when it benefits people, communities, and the places we call home. I believe this helped to get my first private member's bill, the Paris Gulf Moraine Conservation Act, through second reading with all party support. It's also why I co-sponsored a bill with conservative MPP Lauren Coe to impose a fine for blocking electric vehicle charging stations, becoming the first green bill to become law in Ontario history. It's helped my second private member's bill, banning sick notes, pass second reading, receiving all party support. I played a key role in getting unanimous consent to bring forward legislation for a commercial evictions ban, and I will continue to work across party lines to help people, especially now as we navigate the third wave of the COVID pandemic. This past year has been so difficult for everyone. Parents, students, workers, our elderly, healthcare workers, and small businesses. And it's been a privilege to work with so many in our community to find PPE, housing, and emergency food deliveries for people. I've worked hand in hand with our local MP and mayor, calling for clear rules during emergency orders for small businesses, for rent relief, and for support grants to help people and businesses. Just last week, I sent an open letter to the Premier calling on him to address the obstacles that Guelph businesses are facing with the small business support grant. My team has worked so hard to help Guelph businesses access support and to extend the grant deadline. And I will continue to call for a third round of funding and for the eligibility criteria to be expanded to help more local businesses get through another shutdown. If you know me well, you know that I will go to the mat for our community, whether it's two-way all-day go service, extending the bottled water moratorium, advocating for an overdose prevention site, convincing the government to reopen community gardens during the pandemic, or advocating to get funding for infrastructure improvements to support things in our community like Hope House, the YMCA, the Guelph Black Heritage Society, and supportive housing projects. I have never hesitated, nor will I ever hesitate to bring Guelph's voice to Queen's Park, regardless of who the government of the day is. These last few years have shown what a difference even one Green MPP can make. It reminds me of why we worked so hard to get elected in the first place. So rest assured that Ontario is waking up to why Greens matter, why we do politics differently, how we prioritize people and planet over party politics. And why? Because we need and deserve a more caring Ontario. This pandemic has highlighted so many of the gaps, especially in how we care for one another. The devastating humanitarian crisis in Ontario's long-term care homes is a stain on this province that we must fix. We can and must do better. I've long called for a minimum standard of 4 hours of care for long-term care residents. And the Premier finally listened. But elders and the workers who care for them can't wait 4 years for funding to deliver 4 hours of care. They deserve better, and they deserve funding now. Essential workers and vulnerable workplaces need legislated paid sick days and paid time off to get vaccinated. No worker in Ontario should have to choose between their health and putting food on the table. We must do better by putting care back into politics. But you won't see that care in Doug Ford's recent budget. The Premier, who has spent over a year telling people to stay home, provided almost no funding for affordable housing. The Premier, who day after day gives shout outs to frontline workers, chose to ignore their pleas for paid sick days and doesn't have a vaccine strategy to prioritize vulnerable workplaces in hard-hit communities. The Premier, who talks about keeping schools open, cut education funding by $790 million in next year's budget. The Premier talks about the mental health challenges of the pandemic has not accelerated funding for mental health and addiction services. We can and must do better. Instead of campaigning around the province, we need a Premier focused on containing COVID and not abdicating leadership to local public health officers. We need a Premier laying the foundation for a green and caring recovery. But in the midst of the biggest public health crisis of our time, Doug Ford is doubling down on his pro-sprawl, anti-environment agenda. Whether it's stripping power away from conservation authorities that protect us from flooding and keep our drinking water clean, letting his big money donors pave over wetlands, ripping up environmental protections meant to mitigate the effects of the climate crisis, or fast-tracking highways that pave over prime farmland, wetlands, and the Greenbelt, the Ford government has shown a complete disregard for our natural heritage. These extreme actions have put people, communities, and infrastructure at risk, and I will continue to do everything I can to stop this environmentally destructive agenda. Don't get me wrong, Greens are not anti-development, but we believe in making smart development decisions that lessen our impact on the environment. We believe in investments that tackle our next big public health crisis, the climate crisis that is barreling down on us. We can make smart investments in the $26 trillion clean economy that will generate new careers and good paying jobs. Instead of spending $10 billion on Highway 413, that will only save commuters 30 seconds. We can use that money to launch a $5 billion green retrofit building program that will leverage over $80 billion in private investment, create over 800,000 jobs, reduce climate pollution, and save people billions on their energy bills. We have solutions. We simply need the political will to implement them. But the Ford government is failing to think beyond their pay-to-pave schemes. And the three legacy parties in Ontario have failed to understand the urgency of the climate crisis. They talk a good game, but when it comes time to bat, they don't show up to the plate. And I want to assure you that Greens will run to the plate and go to bat for you. Greens will never back down on protecting people and the places we love. We understand that the climate crisis is real and BIPOC communities will be the first and worst hit. And that is why, and I want to be really clear here, that is why we will not achieve climate action without racial and social justice. So mark my words, we have to do politics differently if we stand a chance for a greener and more caring Ontario. And that means winning Guelph again, making Guelph the green leader in this province and electing more green MPPs. The green momentum is picking up steam in Ontario. We're getting more attention, we're turning heads, and we're growing in numbers. 2022 is our year to make an even greater impact, but it's going to take all of you to make that happen. We need our volunteers to recruit more volunteers. We need you to show up and bring 3 more people with you. We need you to stay involved, share your ideas, share your vision with us. Together, we can continue to bring Guelph's values, green voices, and the green vision to Queen's Park. Never forget that the future is green. And that future is here right now because of all of you. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you, be safe and be well.
All right, and with that inspiring speech, we are officially closing voting. Thank you to everyone who voted. While we just sort of make sure 100% that everything's okay, we're going to show you a video that will, once again, showcase our own Mike Schreiner in action. So if you didn't get a chance to see some of those things that were being referenced in the earlier speeches, here's your chance.
That's not it. Hold on.
And I will say it again, and I will repeat it over and over in this house, that holding polluters accountable is not red tape. Protecting water and farmland is not red tape. Protecting our communities and people's public health is not red tape. And keeping dangerous chemicals out of our air and food is not red tape. And that's exactly what people told us at committee. Speaker, we have solutions, fiscally responsible solutions, economically responsible solutions, and we owe it to our children and our grandchildren to leave them a livable planet. That's why we need climate action. We need farmland to grow food and jobs, and we need green space to protect us from flooding. People want affordable public transit, not more expensive congestion and highways. Speaker, will the Premier commit to protecting prime farmland and say no to Highway 413? I released a climate change strategy this morning. I have forwarded to the Minister's office. He is welcome to steal every idea in that plan. Thanks to all the people, organizations, and First Nations who've been working so hard to save the lower Duffins Creek wetlands. Your hard work is paying off. People power works. First, Amazon is pulled out. Now Pickering has put a pause on development, and we just need to keep putting the pressure on Doug Ford to revoke the MZO,
to remove Schedule 3 from Bill 257, which blows up Ontario's planning laws and environmental protections, and have the government restore the power of conservation authorities so they can protect the nature that protects us. Greens will continue to take your voice to Queen's Park to protect the places we love in Ontario.
Hi, everyone. I'm back from counting the votes. Haha. I'd like to thank everyone who participated. I'd like to also officially confirm that we have dutifully nominated Mike Schreiner to stand for election as our candidate in the 2022 provincial election. And I'd like to turn it over to Mike to continue talking to us with all his wonderful words and doing the great job that he's been doing.
Well, I'm glad I was able to defeat none of the above. I was a bit nervous about that, so I just want to thank all of you for having confidence in me to carry the green banner in Guelph for the next election, and just say what an honor and privilege it is to work with so many dedicated and committed people. And when I say people powered change works, it does. And there have been so many obstacles that people have told me at Queen's Park that we couldn't overcome. And we've done it. And we've done it because of all of you and people around this province who are committed to our values, our vision, and our policies. And so, you know, the next provincial election is a little over a year away, and we have a lot of work to do between now and then. But I think we have a huge opportunity coming out of this pandemic to build a greener and more caring Ontario. And it all starts with you and all of you and the great work that you do. So I'm just honored. And I tell you what, I love this job and I love working with you and I love serving Guelph and I love being Guelph's voice at Queen's Park. And I'm looking forward to doing it with your help for another 4 years. So thank you. And I can't wait until we can all meet in person again. I'm tired of virtual meetings. I get energy from all of you, and it's hard when I'm in my living room talking to you through a computer. But hopefully that day's not too far away.
So before we close the meeting, I have one more person to introduce who's going to ask you some questions. I'd like to introduce Diane Dance.
Hello, folks. Thank you for being here tonight at this nomination meeting, and thank you to everyone who put the meeting together. Tonight, we are starting the process to make this wonderful person, Mike Schreiner, our next MPP for Guelph. I am so honored to be asked to join Mike's local team. I'm fairly new to campaigning, beginning in Mike's 2018 run. But since then, I have become empowered to do what I can to help ensure that good people such as Mike get into politics and become MPPs. This is how we get important messaging from our city and our hearts to Queen's Park, as Mike has championed our messages consistently and effectively over these past 3 years. Between now and June 2nd, 2022, or sooner if Mr. Ford decides, we need to reach every Guelph citizen and make sure that they will again vote for Mike Schreiner, their current MPP, and by the way, who is also the leader of the Green Party of Ontario. We need to work hard to earn every vote again. We can do this by consistently highlighting Mike's local and provincial accomplishments and share Mike's sincere interest and positions on current issues, as you heard him speak tonight. This wave of information can only be distributed through you, our incredible volunteers. I know you will rally around Mike as you did in 2018 and for the many years before as the roots of the Green Party grew in Guelph. We also have an opportunity to be an example for other soon-to-be green ridings as we can share what we have learned as volunteers, what works, what doesn't, and we can export our enthusiasm because Guelph volunteers have tasted victory. With this in mind, I'm putting out a call tonight to everyone and anyone who is interested in getting involved in the 2022 campaign. Starting tomorrow, Mike needs leaders to step forward and take charge of areas that interest them, such as communication, phone and foot canvassing, data management, website design, graphics, social media, office admin, sign delivery, and the ever important food management. We need real estate agents looking for great office space, and we need people to think of donating office furniture and equipment. We need IT people to help us be online and running smoothly. I know you all know this campaign drill because I've seen you do it. Please reach out to me at info@mikeforguelph.ca and let's talk about your role in the upcoming election. Maybe someday in the future, as Mike mentioned, maybe we can actually meet for a coffee. I intend to work very hard for Mike in the upcoming 15 months to do everything I can to help him be successful in Guelph. I also promise to work hard for you, our valued volunteers, to make this campaign fun and effective as you give your time, money, and lawn space, all to ensure the Green Party is represented in Queen's Park for another 4 years. Mike, I speak for myself, your Guelph Greens team, and all your volunteers. We gotcha. We will do whatever we need to do to get you reelected and back to Queen's Park as Guelph's MPP, so you can continue your amazing work and journey in promoting policies for jobs, people, and planet. Thank you, Mike, for all you have done and all you will do. Thanks, Jill. Back to you.
Wow. What a night. I'm so excited that we can finally talk about Diane and the role that she's going to be playing in Mike's campaign. And I'm so excited that we can finally say that Mike is officially going to be our candidate again. And I'd once again just like to thank you all for having come here tonight in your virtual selves and supported this. One minor housekeeping thing that I forgot to raise at the beginning, we have been recording this meeting. So if you have any concerns about your image being shared, please do also feel free to reach out and let us know that that's not okay if that's not okay. And once again, that's info@Guelph Greens if you have any problems. And I'd like to thank our speakers again. I'd like to thank our organizers. I'd like to thank Diane, and I'd really like to thank Mike because I haven't gotten a chance to do that recently, and I just want to say how great he is again. Thank you all for coming. Bye now.